Hey families, I'm Sam, and this is the Happy Days, Rested Nights podcast, a weekly meeting spot for families like yours who have goals of solid sleep, healthy bodies, and happy homes. We'll be digging into topics that touch this stage of your life and focus on clear takeaways with big impacts. Whether there's a baby in your arms or you're soaking up a few moments child-free, I'm thankful you're here. Let's do this. Hello. Welcome back to the Happy Days, Rested Nights podcast. If you've been around for a little while, you may have noticed a bit of a difference here on the podcast. And before we get into this next episode, I wanted to take a second to explain to you this difference and why it's happening and what to expect moving forward. I absolutely love being able to reach you, connect with you, and for you to connect with me as well through this podcast. We have 72 episodes in our library that you can go back to and listen to at any time. Maybe there's something that doesn't connect to your family right now, but eventually down the road it will, and you'll have the ability to go back and listen to it. But if I'm being completely honest, a week-to-week podcast is a lot. It definitely is. And we're growing in so many different ways that I wanted to make sure we're continuing the podcast because I absolutely love it, like I said, but also making sure that there's room to grow in different areas and connect with you in different areas. For example, Instagram, I absolutely love talking with you guys there as well. To my membership group of members that I am with multiple times a month, and in my one-on-one clients that I get to work with that way. I try to find a balance in all the different ways that I am honored to connect with parents. And so even though I absolutely love this podcast, I've decided to make a choice that was not easy to make. And instead of going week to week, I've now decided to go month to month. So every month we're going to have a brand new episode, and I promise to continue bringing you different topics, growing our library here on the podcast, bringing you different guests, all of the things. And if there's a topic I haven't covered that you're like, ooh, I wish you would talk about this, send me a DM over on Instagram and say, I was listening to the podcast. Will you do an episode about this? And I will for sure do my best to bring that to the podcast. But that's why you have not been seeing a brand new episode every single week. I promise you we're still going to be around, and we're definitely still going to dig into lots of topics that affect this stage of our parenting journey. But we're going to do it month to month and slowly grow our library since we have such a good foundation right now instead of week to week, which will allow me to connect with you guys and continue doing so in so many different ways. I thank you for coming back, for listening, for sharing with your friends, for all the amazing things that you have done to make this possible. And I promise you that we will keep doing so, just on a little bit different of a schedule. So jumping into this week's episode, I decided to bring a pretty fun guest. This is something we have not talked about before, and I'm excited to go ahead and jump in and listen. Her name is Dr. Kelly Lupo, and she's a licensed naturopathic doctor in Scottsdale, Arizona. She got her medical degree from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Tempe, Arizona. And prior to medical school, she graduated from SUNY Binghamton University with a bachelor's degree in integrative neuroscience. That is a mouthful, and she's so smart, so kind. She has a passion for educating and empowering individuals to take back their health. She has a special focus in women's health, hormone optimization, non-opioid pain management, and IV therapy. She's a gem. I'm actually working with her one-on-one right now, and you'll hear a little bit more about that in the episode. So let's go ahead and jump in. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to episode 73 of the Happy Days, Rested Nights podcast. I am in for a very exciting interview here. Somebody I've been wanting to talk to and bring to you for a while. I've been working with her one-on-one myself, but now I get to bring her to you. This is Dr. Kelly Lupo. Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Samantha. I'm so excited to chat today.
Why don't we go ahead and dig into what you do and the wonderful things you help women with? So give us a little overview on your background, how you connect with women, what your specialty is, all of that.
Sure, absolutely. So I am a naturopathic doctor. I'm located in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I focus on women's health and hormone optimization. So I work with lots of women on getting their menstrual cycles regulated, fertility, feeling good, just looking and feeling themselves again. So a little bit about my background. So I have both PCOS and endometriosis, which are two reproductive conditions, can cause lots of period problems, pain, irregular periods. And it took me a really long time to get diagnosed. So, I went through the conventional route. I went to my doctors, tried birth control, tried some other things. Unfortunately, that didn't do the trick for me. So I kind of had to find other ways in order to heal my hormones. And it really wasn't until I discovered naturopathic medicine through a friend in college. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Ways to optimize our hormones naturally through things like our diet, our lifestyle, using natural herbs and supplements. So if you're somebody who is struggling and not getting the answers and solutions that you want, I like to educate people that there are some other options out there. And these things can work really, really well. So there are definitely ways that we can optimize hormones and get you feeling better.
Well, and I think it's amazing because I have been working with you, and my experience personally is that when you start to feel like something is not going like it should internally, and you go to your doctor, at least in my experience, I can only speak to that. My, normal GYN and normal doctors would say like, oh, well, we'll just get on birth control, or, oh, we'll just do this or that. And they weren't, and although it works for some people, they weren't things that I felt like were the solution for me. I felt like something else was going on. There was something hormonal that we could be talking more about. And so that's what I've loved in my time with you so far. And what I love about your Instagram page too, because you put out so much information about that I think a lot of people just don't know are things they could fix. As moms, which is the audience that's listening right now, we go through pregnancies, sometimes multiple pregnancies. And when we're done with that, and sometimes when we're done nursing, our body's a little confused and it takes some time to get it back where it needs to be. But sometimes we feel like, heavy periods, painful periods are normal, and all these symptoms are normal. And I feel like you're educating people about how things aren't necessarily normal.
Right, absolutely. And that was something that I had to learn, from my own personal experience as a patient. I was constantly told, this is normal, this is normal. But deep down, I knew this wasn't normal. I shouldn't have to be, passed out on the bathroom floor every month from painful periods. I shouldn't have to be missing school or work. I should just be able to, have mild symptoms and be able to get through my day. And that's the issue that, a lot of women and a lot of moms deal with, especially after pregnancy. That's such a shock to the system, hormonally, emotionally, physically, that sometimes it takes our bodies a little bit of time to bounce back. So I like to educate women, hey, if things aren't getting better by X amount of time, then we really need to listen to our bodies and get the help that we need. We need to investigate why you're not feeling better, why maybe your hormones aren't bouncing back as quick as we'd like them to, and really find out what that underlying issue is. And it's so easy for us to say, oh, we're a new mom or have several kids. Of course, they're going to be tired after, having a baby and having multiple kids, but sometimes it's a little bit more than that. So I always tell people, hey, really listen to your body, listen to the symptoms. These are messengers from our body saying something may be wrong internally. So I like to educate people through my social media platforms that, just to be aware that, hey, if you're having these symptoms, it's totally okay, but let's take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about this population that's listening right now, what are some of the symptoms that people might be experiencing that they might think are normal or been told are normal, and they just know, okay, wait a minute, I can think twice about this. What are some of those symptoms?
Sure, absolutely. So the biggest thing that I see is fatigue, so lack of energy. So of course, after being a mom, after having a baby, we're not going to get the sleep, with a newborn that we typically have. But there comes a certain point when, your child is a little bit older, that we should start feeling better. So fatigue is a big one. And irregular periods. So when we're kind of done with the breastfeeding stage, if that's the path you choose to go down for your child, we should be getting a period back. So if you're not getting a regular cycle after, having a child, after so many months, this is something that we definitely need to take a look at, especially if you're somebody who wants to have future children. We definitely want to get those hormones regulated so that way we can get you feeling better in the meantime, but also set you up for success for future pregnancies. So those are usually the two that I find, people really come to see me for, especially in that postpartum time frame.
Okay. Yeah, those are really important things to think about. There's some other symptoms that I would never have related to hormones. Some of the things you talk about, like cystic acne or chin hair. How many mamas out there have, the sun hits you the right way and you're like, "Oh, how long has that hair been there?" Those types of little things I would never know personally could be hormonal related. And now working with you and learning more from you, it's like, wait, okay, that makes total sense. That could definitely have to do with that. So some of those other ones are funny to me that you just wouldn't connect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even things like brain fog, digestive issues, a lot of these can play a role with hormones that we don't even think about. But yeah, acne, abnormal facial hair, even oily skin, darkening in certain areas of the body, this can all be related to hormones. So there are so many symptoms out there that can be linked. And unfortunately, there's just not enough education out there for us women to know about these things. So that's really my goal for working with women, is to really help them understand their bodies and understand what is normal versus what is not normal.
So, what do you think the amount of time is? I know it's probably different for everyone, but if you just had a baby 6 months ago and things are kind of weird, is that enough time to be asking questions? Or should we realistically be waiting 12 months or 18 months? Is there an amount of time you recommend?
Sure, that's a great question. So, of course, it's going to vary person to person. The biggest question I ask people is, are you breastfeeding? Are you still breastfeeding?
Mhm.
Because that in itself will kind of shut down our menstrual cycle. So, if you are somebody who is continuing to breastfeed into that 6 month mark, a year mark, things may be a little wonky with your periods, but you should absolutely be able to get some energy back. Sleeping should be, a little bit more optimal at that point. So if you are breastfeeding, it may take a little bit longer, and that's totally okay. There's lots of things that we can do to support the body for whatever other symptoms you're experiencing. Now, if you're not breastfeeding, if did bottle feeding, or you're kind of transitioning into solid foods for your child, and we're not getting a period back, then that's the time when we really want to look at, okay, why aren't your hormones kind of kicking back up as they should? And that's when I usually recommend women get some comprehensive hormone testing. So usually by the 3 month mark, if you're not breastfeeding right after you have a child, then hormones should kind of start to bounce back. Periods may be a little irregular, but they at least should be coming back. So usually between that 3 and 6 month mark, if you're not breastfeeding, is that kind of time frame of we should start seeing some of these things starting to come back. If we aren't, then let's get some testing. Let's do a little bit of investigating to see what is going on, why your hormones aren't back to normal at that point.
Okay, that's a good time frame for sure. So when we talk about hormones, what are we looking for? Like when you get a hormone test kit back, are you looking at, I mean, testosterone is one of them, but what other hormones are we looking at?
Sure. So that's a great question. I get this a lot. So not only reproductive hormones can play a factor, but things like our thyroid, our adrenal glands can play a factor. So there's kind of three things that I look at in terms of hormones. When I say comprehensive hormone testing, I always talk about this on my social media. So the first thing is going to be our reproductive hormones. So things like our estrogen, our progesterone, our testosterone. These are three key players in kind of regulating the menstrual cycle. They also have lots of other effects in the body, but these are going to be the three key players. And a lot of the times postpartum, things like our estrogen and progesterone can be a little wonky. So making sure that these are at optimal levels. Looking at testosterone, if you're somebody who has high testosterone, we need to see, okay, is PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome potentially an issue for you? So those are some reproductive hormones. Of course, there's lots of other things that we can test. The second thing that I test is thyroid. So a lot of women with hormone imbalance also have some thyroid issues, whether that is hypothyroidism, which is kind of low thyroid output, or Hashimoto's, which is kind of the autoimmune version of that. And this can actually be triggered postpartum. So a lot of women who didn't have thyroid issues previously may now suddenly have thyroid issues because our body was in such a huge transformational stage, went through that shock, that trauma, that change of pregnancy, that sometimes our thyroid needs a little bit of love. So with a thyroid test, I do a full panel. So looking at things like your TSH, your free T4, your free T3, as well as those thyroid antibodies. This is going to give us a whole picture of your thyroid versus maybe just testing a couple of things like most practitioners will do. And then the third and final thing I look at is adrenal health, which actually plays right into your field too. So the adrenals will pump out things like cortisol and DHEA. Cortisol is going to be our main energy hormone. This is our stress response hormone. So, of course, after pregnancy, stress is through the roof, whether that's internal stress from our body trying to kind of bounce back, external stress from having now a new baby and trying to adapt to mom life. So with cortisol, this is going to actually regulate our circadian rhythm, so our sleep cycle. So when we have all of this new stress in our life, this can absolutely get messed up too. And not only does it play a role in sleep, but it also plays a role in metabolism, blood sugar, weight management. So there's lots of things that we can kind of look at in terms of hormones versus just, okay, do you have enough estrogen, progesterone? So hormones are very, very complex, which is why it's so important to make sure you're seeing somebody who understands how all of these relate together.
I love all that information and the details in your answer, but my favorite part of it is really that there's no guessing, right? There's a way to actually look and do comprehensive testing and figure out exactly what's going on, but that isn't always the first path for a lot of the doctors that we go to, which there's nothing, I mean, I'm in support of all the doctors, but I feel like a doctor like you, when we're working together, there are no guesses. The tests we're going to do aren't going to lie. We're going to know exactly what's going on. And then we can make a path and a plan that fits each person individually, which that's always my goal when I partner with families in my area. And I feel like that's your goal as well, is figuring out what do you need and how is this going to help you? I think it's wonderful. I absolutely love what you do.
So yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I like to do. I don't want to guess because I spent years guessing about my hormones, right? I want to see things on paper, and that's just me. I know a lot of people like to see those number on the page too. So I don't want to guess. Let's get a baseline. Let's get all of the information all at once so we can really figure out what is happening and we can get to the bottom of your symptoms. And just like you said, so I like to customize all of my treatments to your specific needs because everyone's hormones, everyone's needs are going to be a little bit different. So, getting to the bottom of your specific hormone imbalance can help us figure out what treatments we need to do to get you feeling your best.
I love it. I think it's so important for moms out there to realize that it's important to look internally and, be healthy in that way as well. Of course, I'm a fan that you mentioned the benefits of sleep in this as well and the effects on sleep, because that is so, so, so important. And whether it's moms aren't getting necessarily the sleep because of something internally that's not allowing them to, or they're not getting the sleep because their kiddos aren't sleeping, one of us can help them, right? You or me, we got this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can totally partner up. I would love to work on things internally. You work on optimizing sleep, in the household. I think, this would be a great combination for a lot of women.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. And you know what? Every woman needs to decide if, this is the right path. Do they want to get this testing, or maybe it's not the right time for them to, but just to be thinking about it and looking for signs of what their body's communicating with them is so beneficial in so many different ways. So I thank you for taking the time and recording with us today. Can you do me a favor and tell everybody where to find you and how you connect with people?
Sure. So you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram as well as TikTok. My username is at Dr. Kelly, Kelly, Lupo, Lupo. So those two handles are the same. I put out lots of educational content weekly, chatting all about different types of hormones, and I also answer a lot of questions. So those are my two social media pages. I also have a website. So you can find me at www.drkellylupond as a naturopathic doctor.com. And on there, I have a link to my at-home test kits. So if you are interested in getting some comprehensive hormone testing, you can go right on there and take a peek at those. I also have a lot of wellness bundles and all of my favorite supplements linked on there. So if you're curious and want to know a little bit more about what I do, everything is on there. And I do have a free private Facebook group for women all about hormones. It's called Natural Health and Hormones. So every week I do a live talk on there on a specific hormone topic every Wednesday night. So last night we had a whole question and answer on our menstrual cycle, which was fantastic. So lots of ways to connect with me. You're always welcome to reach out if you ever have any questions. And I see people both in office, in my office in Scottsdale, as well as virtually all over the country.
I actually didn't know you had that Facebook page, so I'm going to have to jump over there and join. But thank you so much for telling everybody about you, about this topic. I think it's so important. We appreciate you so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun, and thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And guys, until next week, we're sending sleepy vibes and prayers your way. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to the podcast. And to all of you who have told your friends and families about Happy Days, Rested Nights, I really appreciate you. Before you go, remember to hit the subscribe button. And if you're ready to dig in deeper, you can check at Samantha Day Sleep Consulting on both Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, sending sleepy vibes and prayers your way.